Hello and welcome back to El Pozo, the Primera RF show where we take you down the well into the third tier of Spanish football, and we are really starting to heat up as we are in the final knockings of the season. Still plenty to play for, and I'm delighted to be joined by Liam Bambrish on this journey as we're going to go through. Is it Jornada 29, Liam? Is that where we're at?
Certainly is, yeah. 9 to go after this one.
Absolutely incredible. It seems to be flying by so quick, and still nothing well and truly decided apart from maybe one aspect not too far off. But before we get into the football games from this weekend, let's have a little look at the news first, because with form or lack thereof often comes managerial changes, Liam. We have seen plenty of movement in the managerial window this season. I think this is now up to about the 28th or 27th at least managerial changes that we've seen. Two casualties this week. Iago Iglesias at Lugo and Dani Vidal at Real Aviles Industrial. This is two understandable but still quite strange decisions, aren't they?
Yeah, I think probably the situation with Iglesias is that Lugo do have one of the biggest budget in Grupo Uno. They've been very heavily backed over the last summer, and of course they brought in Gallar as well, didn't they, in the winter transfer window? So they put some serious money into this promotion. Personally, he's not in the top five, and hasn't been going brilliant in the last few weeks. Maybe all along they felt he's slightly underperforming. But again, like you say, well, they're only just outside the top five, and not many teams, would have expected to catch Tenerife even before the season started. I don't think so. Not sure about that one. Dani Vidal, yeah, we talked about him a lot over the season. We're really impressed with what he's done, and they have done really poorly so far in 2026. Real Aviles Industrial, but yeah, I feel sorry for him there because he came in very late on in the day, and I thought he did pretty well for a while, and they've slightly hit the wall, and maybe the expectations that were built up in that first half of the season have now come back to haunt him in a way, because if he'd been in and around the relegation zone all season, I think probably he'd still be in a job. And yet, because he started off really well and now things are tanking, so to speak, he looks like he can't arrest that slide. And of course, they want to stay in the division, so they've decided to dispense him. But I do feel quite sorry for him.
Yeah, it's an odd one, like you say. The Iago Iglesias one, you can kind of see why. Though to be fair as well, looking at the queue of clubs just outside the playoffs in Grupo Uno, you kind of got to put it down to just one of many. And if every single club that was in a similar position did, the same thing, then we'd have a mass exodus of managers, wouldn't they? Dani Vidal is where I really feel sorry for as well, Liam, because I just think, I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head there. Expectations in Asturias have been risen, probably beyond actually where they need to be. And if you would have said to me as, if I was a Real Aviles fan back in September and said, you'll still be outside the relegation zone come, the end of March, I probably would have bitten your hand off, wouldn't you? I think, that's not a bad job, but ultimately, the form is the form. One win in 2026 so far, lots of draws. But I think for both of these managers, the last game has ultimately killed them off. And it's those results against teams which are around the bottom part of the table that really sort of like sent the message to the board, haven't they, to say, we need to change something here.
Yeah, I think the concern for Real Aviles Industrial is that most of the teams below them are doing all right at the moment, aren't they? We look at the sides that are still in the bottom five, and we remind ourselves again that 5 teams out of 20 are going down, and also sort of promesas that are pretty much done and dusted. But apart from them, you can't really rule out anyone else, and so I suppose they're thinking we need to act while we are still outside the bottom 5 before these teams that are just behind us now, let's face it, overtake us, and then we're facing a rearguard action to try and scramble out of that relegation zone. So it kind of makes sense, but it does feel harsh. And Iglesias equally, I suppose they're thinking new manager bouncy. If we get somebody in, we've got a squad that we feel is underperforming, and it's up for grabs, really, isn't it? Behind Tenerife, there's 4 playoff places there, but there's so many jostling for position in that pack just outside the top 5, and even the ones in the top 5 haven't got much of a gap, have they, over the ones outside it. So probably thinking if we get somebody in here who can make a bit more of this squad, then we could easily end up cementing our place in the playoffs rather than spending the next few weeks trying to get into them.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a scramble, like you say, and no news on who's going to come into Lugo just yet. I think there are probably rumours and conjecture flying around, but I think they're definitely going to want to make the right appointment and get the right man in. Real Aviles Industrial have acted a little bit faster than the other club, going with Lolo Escobar, who is absolutely steeped in Primera RF experience. I think he's been at this level with Salamanca before. He was last at this level with Lugo, actually, if I remember rightly. So he knows this level. He knows how to survive in this level, more importantly. So I think that's probably a bonus for Real Aviles Industrial that will give him that new manager bounce you're talking about.
Yeah, possibly so. As you say, he knows his way around this level, and I suppose from that point of view, Danny Vidal doesn't, does he? He spent his time, with Nastic Tarragona, at the top end of this level, I suppose. He's been at this level, I suppose, Danny Vidal, but not in this kind of situation, not facing a relegation battle, has he? Really, he's always been in a squad that's like looking to push up at the top end of the table. I suppose, although it's the same division, it's kind of a completely different challenge, isn't it? And I suppose that's what they want Escobar to do, to come in and basically rally the troops and dig in and push for just safety. Really, that's all they need now, isn't it? Really, I think any prospect of making the top five is beyond Real Aviles Industrial now. So yeah, I get that one. And as I say, I think from Iglesias' point of view at Lugo, they're looking for somebody to do more or less what you'd think that Danny Vidal might have been able to do, for them, which is really push them into that top five and cement a chance to get up to Segunda.
Yeah, might be interesting actually. Danny Vidal to Lugo, maybe if we get that rumour flying, because all the rules around not employing, previously in job managers or recruiter managers from other clubs has seemingly gone out the window this season. Very unusually, that gentleman's agreement has evaporated, but nonetheless, we'll keep you up to date with all the managerial changes and whoever does come into post at Lugo across our social medias as always. So, should we get into some football, Liam? Because there was plenty of good action in Grupo Dos this weekend. You have got all the goals. I have a mere, I think, 4 goals to tell you about.
You do, yeah. But we start with one of our favourite teams, don't we? Deportivo Guadalajara against Talavera in the Pedro Escartin, and in 1-1. Decent crowd, and there was a lot of talk about this being a massive game for the home side and a decent scheduling as well. I think it kicked up at midday, didn't it, on the Sunday, and a nice sunny afternoon. And yeah, I think there was over 4,000. That was a really decent crowd for the home side this season. They were quite quickly silenced, though, weren't they? Unfortunately.
Yeah, well, what I did notice is the Talavera fans obviously travelled quite well as well. Obviously, it's not too far a distance between Talavera and Guadalajara. It's sort of like opposite sides of Madrid, equal distant either which way from the city centre, I would kind of roughly estimate, but still a good travelling crowd. As you mentioned, really lively atmosphere, but it was quiet in pretty much after 7 minutes when Marcos Moreno basically just latched onto a knockdown ball and just smashed it into the back of the net. Like, if anything, it was almost bordering rude what he did, because it was like about 6 yards out and he just absolutely put his foot through it, rippled the back of the net, and there was just absolutely no chance of any Depor player or keeper keeping it out. And I think what I noticed from this game, Liam, is they were both desperate to win it, both obviously in a precarious position at the moment, and they really went for it, didn't they?
It's interesting, isn't it? I agree with you on that, because you think quite often with these kind of games where they both need to win it, they're both quite cagey because they also don't want to lose it, do they? But yeah, this didn't get that kind of feeling really from the first minute. You felt, as you say, both were going for it. Both keepers had a busy afternoon, and I think overall, Talavera will feel a little bit disappointed that they didn't hang on. I think they're particularly disappointed, perhaps, at the manner of the equaliser. I mean, even with my purple shirt on, I think it's a soft penalty, don't you, to be honest?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think what swayed this result to maybe being a point for Talavera away rather than bringing back 3 points is, first of all, the introduction of Salifo. We've told everyone how dangerous he can be in his day. And when he was brought on here, he instantly made himself a bit of a nuisance. First of all, drawing the foul that got Edu Gallardo sent off. So again, going down to 10 men away at the Estadio Pedro Escartin is never a good idea. But then, like you say, this penalty where it went to an FBS check, didn't it? And I think the referee was sort of insinuating that a foot had gone into the back of the calf kind of area, or it was leant on ever so slightly. But I must admit, Salifo did go down quite lightly with this one, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. But Guadalajara would say quite rightly, they've had some quite tough decisions go against them this season. I remember one particular game against, ironically, Real Aviles Industrial, when I still can't quite work out what the penalty was given for, and that cost some points. So I think what often happens with these situations is you get some perhaps generous ones, and you eventually evens yourself out because you've also had some poor decisions along the way as well. Unless you're one of the big boys, of course, in which case you seem to get endlessly favourable decisions. But yeah, I think if I were Talavera fan, I'd be disappointed to have this one given against me. Nesquez wasn't in the slightest bit bothered by the controversy surrounding the decision, smashed his penalty home. And overall, Guadalajara still in the same position as before, still really close to safety and on a 5-game unbeaten run. So that's incredibly encouraging for them as well. Probably the key thing here, I think, was just to not get beaten, wasn't it? Having been behind for so very long as they were.
Yeah, I think it's obviously we spoke last week about Guadalajara and how they've managed to hit this rich vein of form going forward that might ultimately save them come the end of the season. And as we previously mentioned with Real Aviles Industrial, that sort of relegation survival scrap is it's 5 out of a possible. Do we say 9 teams that are sort of like in that kind of danger zone at the minute? And if you'd have said to me a few weeks ago, Liam, Guadalajara, do you think they'll stay up? I would have reluctantly had to have sort of say, no, unfortunately, they look like they're absolutely plummeting, but they brought themselves back from the brink and now giving themselves a really good fighting chance of staying in Primera RFEF next season. So, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this relegation battle hots up, because with the probably automatic place already decided, we'll look down to see who can actually stay in this league and be spoken about on El Podo next season. Similar in vein to the next game as well. We've already spoken about Danny Vidal losing his job after this game. The reason why, a 1-1 home draw with Cacereño seeming to be the reason, Liam.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We talked about how both sides looked like they really wanted to win that first game we mentioned, Guadalajara and Talavera. I felt like this was a game where neither side wanted to lose it. It felt a lot more cagey as a spectacle than the first of these two relegation 6-pointers. And I mean, Cacereño will be disappointed overall again. I mean, it's the same situation, isn't it? If you go ahead away from home, you'd want to hang on. It would be the big 3 points for them, and they've had a few decent-ish results recently. But the bottom line is they're still in the bottom 5, aren't they? So I think overall they will be disappointed they couldn't pick up 3 points here.
Yeah, did you see the effort as well from Cacereño, where he sort of like jinks away into the box and he looked to finish past the goalkeeper? He'd actually beaten the goalkeeper, but the goal mouth at the Jose Suarez Puerta, I think it was the name of or the Jose Sanchez Puerta. I can't quite remember which version it is, but the goal mouth is that bobbly and that muddy and that sort of like damaged that the ball genuinely slows down, which gives the Real Aviles Industrial's defender time to basically just go and pick the ball up. Like it wasn't even like he was sprinting to slide it off the line. He basically just like walked over and went, "That's now mine." And it's those kind of scenarios, aren't they, where you just got to think, Cacereño, who haven't been scoring lots of goals this season, and we spoke about it, their lack of a striker, of a proven goal scorer at this level has really hurt their aspirations this year. But those kind of moments when even the pitch is against you, Liam, it's really, really, really hard to take, isn't it? But, ultimately, I think you're right. They would have come away from this thinking we shouldn't have conceded the goal that we conceded, because their opener was an absolute belter. If you want to look in the dictionary this afternoon for Thunder Bastard, Liam, this is very much in that category, isn't it?
Yeah, smashed home by Connes. I mean, he was given too much space, wasn't he, really? But still, he took full advantage and hammered it home from about, it must have been at least 20, 25 yards out. Great effort. Somewhat strange FES check. But, I mean, we get these after every goal, don't we? In theory, the whole point was the fourth official would check stuff and then, unless there was any real reason, not get the referee involved. But it seems to me in recent weeks that, fourth official is now essentially the referee was checking everything before, and now the fourth official is referring far more stuff to the referee than really we want them to. Like, make your own mind up. That's the whole point. We're supposed to be speeding this process up. Don't be checking for stuff that, from what we could see, was, well, I don't even know what they're checking for. Quite bizarre. But yeah, the goal stood, unsurprisingly. Second half, not a classic, we have to say. And eventually it came to Javi Cueto to save the day, didn't it?
It did, and I must admit that the build-up to this goal was certainly better than the goal itself, because it was some good passing football from Real Aviles. Something that we've become, a bit more encouraged by watching Danny Vidal this season. This is the way he's had them playing a lot of, as you mentioned before the winter break, really, that free-flowing passing football that can really cut through defence. And this was, the embodiment of, and a brilliant little jinxed cross from the right-hand side just finds Javi Tueto waiting to nod in the header. And at this point, you've got to think, right, well, let's go for it. Let's go for the win. Let's go and take this momentum and this goal and grab the 3 points. We're the home side. We should be absolutely putting one on here. And it kind of did go that way. But I tell you what, Catherine got Alex Quevedo to thank for this point that they've come away with from Asturias, because his second half performance was nothing short of magical. And I don't use that word lightly, but it was absolutely brilliant. Shot stopping, tipping things around the post, one onto the crossbar. He was at it all 45 minutes, just constantly on guard.
He was, yeah. And I think that's looking back at this sacking, you think to yourself, I've seen a lot worse performances, and coaches have stayed in a job. I guess it is just that sense of momentum and just the one win, as you say, all throughout these last nearly 3 months now of 2026. I get it, but quite easily, although we said earlier that we thought Catherine would be disappointed not to come away with the 3 points here, having been pulled back, I do think you're right. I think that they could easily have lost the game, couldn't they? And they'd probably eventually leave town quite happy to have picked up a point. And as you say, a huge amount of that was down to Quevedo. Yeah, I don't know. I really hope that this works out for Real Aviles and just around this change of coach, because, we'd really like to see him stay in division. I still maintain the belief that Vidal is a bit unlucky to lose his job, and especially after that second half performance. On many other occasions, they would have won the game on the strength of that second half performance.
Yeah, it must feel a bit like a sense of deja vu for Danny Vidal, because you look at the results of the second half of the season. Yes, he's not been good on, but there's been a lot of draws in there, and like you say, there's been a lot of battling draws where they've had to come from behind too, which, the manager will take the can always, but that's down to the players and the quality players and just the way that this season is. We've got to remember, Real Aviles Industrial have kept a huge core of the squad that they came up with. And if we think the jump between Primera F and Segunda is a big jump, it's still quite a big jump between Primera F and Segunda F, isn't it? So you can kind of see why maybe there's some more tired legs in there, a bit of inexperience in game management creeping in. But I think ultimately, the one thing you can't do in this league, seemingly, is build up credit. I think Adrian Colunga also probably fell foul of this at Real Murcia. Came in a barnstorming situation, got loads of points on the board, basically new manager bounced it into a really good position, went on a bit of a bad run, and then ultimately lose your job. It feels like Vidal has maybe not got the benefit of what he'd done previously, which I think is a bit of a shame, really, because ultimately they're going to bring somebody else in now, Lolo Escobar, who it is. He'll come in. He may save them, he may not save them. And what difference would that have been if Danny Vidal would have stayed? That's the question I've got to get. Well, is this managerial change really going to bring them the bounce they need? I can't say I'm convinced by Lolo Escobar, if I'm being perfectly honest. He is a bit of a Primera Ref journeyman.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the issue is actually, as you say, there is no time, there is no patience, because I take you back to the fact that 5 sides out of 20 get relegated. You know what I mean? There's just really no mid-table, is there? We know that you can be 4 or 5 points off the playoffs and 4 or 5 points off the relegation zone. So as soon as that spiral begins and starts to feel like it's terminal, sporting directors and the people above them as well start to panic, if we're honest here. And there is a big difference in terms of level between Segunda F and Primera F, but everybody, I think, feels that they want to be in Primera F once they've got there. Do you know what I mean? It's a big drop off to have to drop back down into Segunda F. And of course, as we've seen with some teams in Segunda F this season, you could even end up being in danger, because it's exactly the same there. In fact, it's even worse. There are 5 teams out of 18, maybe even 6 teams out of 18 going down from each division in Segunda F. You can end up dropping 2 leagues. So you really are desperate to hang on to that Primera F place if you possibly can. And I think that's what makes teams change their coaches so often. It is dizzying, as you say, the rate at which players I should say coaches are losing their job this season. I think worse than we've ever seen in Primera F before. 2 coaches who hopefully won't be losing their job before the end of the season, but you never know. Racing, Ferrol, Neil Baracaldo. Neil, obviously, Racing already made a change in the dugout this season. Baracaldo had the same man in the dugout for quite a while, but you start to wonder who's safe. If Racing Ferrol don't push up and get really near the playoffs next couple of weeks, will they try somebody else other than Guillermo Romo? And if Baracaldo aren't able to build on what's been reasonable form recently, but not great, will our man De La Sota eventually have to be replaced?
Oh, I can't think of Baracaldo without De La Sota. To be honest, honestly, it's that doesn't make sense to me. But like you say, it could happen. It could happen. Depends if, like you say, what the gamble is for, as you've mentioned, one of these 4 playoff places, which are now available with a queue of teams coming out for them. But I tell you what, if those playoff places were decided on this game and this game alone, I don't think either of them would warrant a playoff place at the moment. This was a very, very poor game. Not a lot to discuss. And I must admit, watching Racing Ferrol, who last season go back a few seasons ago, were absolutely electric coming out of this league, took Segunda a bit by storm initially in their first season, obviously a difficult second album the next. But this is whimpering. This is borderline just limping to the end of the season for some strange reason now. The players just don't look interested. And, for me, the squad isn't a bad squad. They just look too flat. And if it wasn't, for a lack of a really potent striker for Baracaldo, this could have been a cricket score easily for the away side.
Yeah, Baracaldo definitely deserved to win this game, didn't they? I mean, nothing for all since Roma's come in. I haven't seen much to impress me. They picked up a few half decent results, but yeah, I'm not sure about him at all. Obviously, he did get Racing out of this division. He doesn't seem to have stirred the troops up in Ferrol at all. And yeah, overall, a fairly forgettable game. Apologies if you followed our tip on this one to watch it, because yeah, it really wasn't worth your time. And probably your best bet was to watch the couple of minutes highlights that someone managed to drag together and do that. But yeah, I mean, Baracaldo, we know, are not brilliant on the road, and probably they'll start for this point away from home, a team who in theory is a strong side, and I think for are pretty decent on their own patch, to be fair. But yeah, overall, and they are not great to watch, are they?
No, and you could feel again, the crowds are a reflection of what's happened on the pitch, aren't they? And it must be said for a lot of the times, especially in Primera RFEF, crowds, however small they may be, do amplify and do make a lot of noise because obviously they're supporting their local club. Malata just felt drab. It just felt beige, this game, and it felt like there was going to be nothing to cheer for. And I think in the end there was only really one shot that tested the Baracaldo goalkeeper in the entire game, which is just not reflective of a side which have kept a good core of their squad from relegation. They have improved with the likes of David Concha and Anton Escobar and many others, Alvaro Jimenez, etc. That are there, good players. It just doesn't feel like anyone is managing to get a rhythm out of them this season, which is a shame because I genuinely thought they would be a challenger to Tenerife. And maybe that's why we have got a runaway leader in this league, because simply no one stepped up to the plate as far as a challenger is concerned. And we've just got Tenerife who, they do win games, they do draw out results, but ultimately if there was a team that was hot on their heels, would they be this far ahead? I don't think they would be,
No, there is a certain responsibility that we all thought that Racing Ferrol would assume that responsibility is their main challenge to start the season. They're way off that, as you say, right now. They've got a fight to even make it into the playoffs. So let's hope things do pick up for them, and let's hope the supporters are a little bit more entertained over the next few weeks. Although I suspect if they grind out a few 1-0s and make the top 5, the supporters won't care that much. But yeah, not massively disappointing overall their season, I would say, at this stage. Grupo dos, 2 teams who haven't had a disappointing season at all. They both, let's not forget, incredibly got promoted from Segunda RF last season, and they are both in the top 5 in Grupo dos, which is a tremendous achievement when we're talking about 2/3 of the way through the season. In fact, beyond that now. Sabadell 4, Europa 0 on this occasion. A thumping, it looks like, but not really when you look in more detail exactly what happened. One thing I would say, though, Nick, is that I have said before, I've been pretty disappointed with Sabadell home fans turning out. Their away support is always good, but the home support I don't think is great. They certainly rallied to the call this weekend, didn't they?
Yeah, it was really good. I saw some videos and photos from the Football Culture Club, which is kind of like a tour company that goes to games all around Europe, I believe. And they were in Barcelona for this one, and it looked absolutely immense. The sunshine was, absolutely resplendent. The crowd was massive, and you could hear the atmosphere as well. Which again, we've complained a couple of times for a team that are top of the league at the moment, Liam. It hasn't really had too much of an atmosphere, but again, a local derby of sorts, two teams going for promotion with high stakes of the reward of Segunda at the top. This was an excellent game, really, to advertise Primera RF because it was an absolute barnstormer. Wasn't quite a fan of Jordi Canio's acting to begin with. A bit of a delayed reaction to a clearance from Diego Huola's boot. It was a hefty clearance, but I think ultimately FES got this one right to begin with, Liam.
Yeah, we do both like Jordi Cannon. I know he's been brilliant for Europa this season. But yeah, it's one of those classic ones. Foley kicks the ball clear and does catch him with his follow through. But Cannon sort of like he's on his feet and then he's like sniper from the crowd, goes down about a second or two later and rightly FES waved away the appeal. Europa really, really might have won this game had they scored first. I mean, that's a real big if, I know. But, they did have a great chance. And the guy that had the great chance, we understand, don't we? Adnan Gailan, the winger, has already signed for Cordoba for the 26-27 season. He's not far away with this effort, but he's 1-on-1 with Foley. And of course, I suppose that's part of the problem. He's 1-on-1 with Foley, and you must be thinking, I've got to put it in the corner, because if I don't put it right in the corner, Foley's saving it. He puts it about a foot wide of the far post. But in that situation, he puts it away and they go one up. Yeah, could have been very different. And then after that, having not taken the best chance of most of the first half, right in the stroke of half time, oh my goodness me, calamity at the back for Europa.
Yeah, we mentioned here that Juan Flair has just come back into the Europa goal, hasn't he? And, we kind of note here that maybe he would have waited a little bit extra week because he's coming here, he's rushed out of his area, he's trying to clear the ball, but he's collided with one of his own defenders, hasn't he? Which is, I think it was Frank Hill, leaving one of my favourite players of this league. He hasn't really done too much this season, but Migueletti, he has, basically arrived at the right time, finishes with the easiest touch, unguarded net, and just gives Sabadell the lead, doesn't he? But again, foolish decisions will cost your team at this level, especially in these high stake games. This is a bit of a gimme from Europa at this point, isn't it?
It is, and I'm not sure. Flaherty's been out for a few weeks. I didn't really pick up why he was out in the first place, but he was wearing a skull cap of this one, Nick. So I wonder if he's had a concussion or something like that. And he did go for half time in this one, so I'm wondering whether even that collision may have caused an issue. We wish him well if that's the case. His replacement, Lucas Garcia, came on at half time and very quickly was picking the ball out of the net himself because, and again, a little bit luck, I suppose, but Alex Cano, Jordi's brother, deflected across the right past Garcia. And so suddenly, 2 minutes in the second half, after a pretty even 48 minutes, Sabadell are 2 up and essentially Europa have gifted them both the goals.
Yeah, which again, when we come back to talking about the high stakes, it's errors like this that will cost you. And as much as we talk about the 5 teams that get relegated, having only that one automatic promotion spot also doesn't help this league, does it? Because it doesn't give you that opportunity to have the runner-up spot alongside it as well. And at this point, I think Europa did try to get back into the game, didn't they? But at which point, essentially Sabadell just started to turn the screw, didn't they? They went and got a third and a fourth. The last screws went over the head of Escuedo, and then Garcia having the easiest of finishes, basically, wasn't it? So they then added a fourth for the end.
Goal. Escuedo tucked it away, so it's a very long ball from Foley. I mean, listen, let's be fair here, Nick. I mean, Europa did have a good spell. Foley, who we were talking about, Blazic being brilliant for Aviles the last few weeks. Perhaps talked about Foley quite so much recently. He makes a couple of great saves with a score of 2-0. And I think there's one from Marcelo Scroll, which he tips onto the bar. It's unbelievable save. In fact, you watch it in real time, you think the shots just hit the bar, and then you see it in slow-mo. And Foley's got a hand to it. Fantastic. I suspect that'll be a save of the week this week. Brilliant. And then, of course, he sets up the third goal. But again, it's a mistake. And it's a big clearance. It goes to the top of the last Europa defender. And, Escudero, Garcia runs out. It's just a bit comedy. Garcia runs out a goal. He doesn't get there first. Scudero gets there first, dips it around him, tucks it in the empty net, and then they get another one in added time. They get two in added time. Alex Cano playing Prego on side. He's miles on side. Thanks to Alex Cano sticking his arm up, hoping for the best, and doesn't get it. So, yeah, I mean, 4-0 is hugely flattering for me to Sabadell. I would argue that Europa basically gifted Sabadell all 4 goals. They were all avoidable from my perspective. But a massive win for the Leaguers. They don't care about that. They made the most of their good fortune, I would suggest. And yeah, they're still very much in with a chance of going up automatically.
Yeah, and I think as well, looking at the balance of the table, I think only it might be 3 or maybe 4 points will guarantee them a playoff place as well moving forward. Which again, we've got to tip the hat to Sabadell, who have come up, from Segunda F this season. Ferran Costa, who obviously was sacked as Andorra coach last January as well. He's doing a fantastic job there, isn't he, Liam? So, it'd be a really interesting team to add into the Segunda mix because, there are no Catalan teams, are there, in the Spanish Segunda? So to have Sabadell as their sole representative will be very, very interested indeed. Another club that seemed to be defying the odds ever so slightly, another newly promoted club, is Juventud de Torremolinos, Liam. Another win for them moves them further away from that relegation zone, don't they? This time at the expense to Atletico Zañoqueño. And we do note here that not only were the backdrop of the mountains at El Pozuelo, even on a cloud day, quite stunning, but the Atletico Zañoqueño away kit has kind of skipped us by. We've not seen it too much, have we?
No, I don't know what we're saying. I haven't watched probably that many Atletico Zañoqueño away games, if I'm honest, but I've usually watched the highlights. I'm not sure if this is a third kit or something. It's just a sort of deep green number. I thought it was very nice. I don't know what you thought. I know you like your kits, but yeah, very, very, very big fan of that one. They could have gone ahead early on. I think Atletico Zañoqueño went into this game feeling that they really had to win it. I think we mentioned it last week that they couldn't necessarily catch hold of the Torremolinos, but they might as well give it a good go at the very least. And losing to them definitely means they won't. But yeah, I mean, they could have scored early on here. New found an early chance. They thought they should have had a penalty. And the home side after that, and Usi Diarra, it did look to me like he was brought down. I have to say, I watched it a couple of times. I thought that was a penalty for Juventud Torremolinos. Wasn't given. Julio Cabrera was the culprit, but the ref said no, even after having another look at FES. And then we had a slightly unfortunate goal, which turned out to be the winner for Juventud Torremolinos, didn't we?
Yes, and you've got to take the rub of the green, if you pardon the pun, when you get it. This was a great run from Pito Camacho down the left-hand side. And basically the cross was turned into his own goal by Samuel Almagro. I must say, Liam, I've watched Pito Camacho a couple of times in the flesh now this season. For an older head, he is very, very good at football. And I think, he is a big part of the reason why Torremolinos are doing so well this season. His attitude, he's not just his goal scoring, it's his overall game and what he brings to Torremolinos, the physical nature of him, the head down and just drag his team across the finish line kind of nature. He's a real asset to them down on the Costa del Sol, isn't he?
Yeah, very much. He doesn't play every game, does he? I think possibly that is partly to do with his age. He's not exactly ancient, but I think he's mid-30s at least, isn't he? And yeah, he's a really good focal point for a lot of what they do. So not just what he does on the pitch, but it's just general way he carries himself. And yeah, I think he's a big part of why they look like, touch wood, they're going to stay up. They've done tremendously well to put themselves in that position. And it's been in recent weeks that they've done that when you thought maybe this is the point in which they're going to start to slide and within a few weeks their fate will be sealed. They've gone the other way, which is brilliant for them. I do think Fran Martinez had a big part to play in this game. He made a brilliant save to keep out a long-range effort from the aforementioned Cabrera, really decent. And then a slightly comical moment. I always wonder how on earth do you think they're going to get away with this in games that now have cameras? Atletico Zañoqueño substitute Yomar Vidal as a ball in from the right. He's obviously thought, can't get the ball past Martina by fair means. He just basically lifts up his fist and basically punches it past Martinez from about 8 yards out. All the Juego Torremolinos players go up for it. And I think the referee spots it anyway, but even if he doesn't spot it the first time of asking, I think he's going to go look at his camera and go, yeah, he's just punched that in the net. So Vidal tries his luck and gets a yellow card rather than the equaliser.
Yeah, kind of hand of God type moment, isn't it? Where he's probably gone for it. Probably dare I say, not even as deceptive as the hand of God. To be fair, it was quite blatantly obvious, wasn't it? But he did have a chance to redeem himself. He got a goal line clearance at the other end. Martinez making an excellent save to ensure that his side kept all the points, and then that moves them 5 points clear now, doesn't it, Liam? Which, when I was speaking to Luke Chambers of Costa del Futbol, if you'd have told me that Juventud Torremolinos not only would be 5 points clear relegation zone at this time of the season, I would have again said, I wouldn't have been too sure. For them to be 5 points clear of Real Murcia, that's just insane levels, isn't it? Really, of achievement more than anything. Obviously, it's a big disappointment on Real Murcia's part to be in that equation, but ultimately, you've got to finish above somebody, and to be above a team that spends that kind of money, where the disparity between what Torremolinos are doing and what Real Murcia are doing on every level is just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is a huge amount of credit. I know that there were issues at the start, and there's new ownership now, which probably means things are a little bit more stable. But it doesn't hide the fact you look at the squad of players, and very similar to what you were saying before about Real Aviles Industrial. Quite a few of these players played for Juventud Torremolinos in Segunda Ref, and let's not forget their star of Segunda Ref team, Fran Castillo, is now at Ibiza. So even though they've now started to get paid, they aren't a team that's got wealth of experienced, expensive players in their ranks, and so tremendous to see what they're doing here. And I'd be delighted if they stayed up. On the flip side, Atletico San Kenya had been a bit of a revival recently, and they've now lost 2 in a row. Obviously, the one at home to Eldense, not a huge surprise, but losing this one was a big defeat for them, really. And they're 7 points from safety, so maybe that mini revival is coming to an end. Talking of Eldense 3, Ibiza 0 was my final game of the weekend. And first half really, Taylor, 2 disallowed goals.
Yeah, it was. The home side had one correctly chalked off after just 90 seconds for an offside, being the correct decision there, Liam. And then the visitors had one for a foul on Devo, on the Eldense defender, before he steered a shot past Ramon Villa. Probably about the right call for this one, Liam, was it, or are you sceptical on this one?
I just like the thought of Devo playing up front for is he playing up front with Devo and Baza? Sounds like my Sunday morning 5-a-side teammate.
I never quite know how to say his name.
He can't be Devo. Come on, don't
be. He's got to be Devo.
He's Spanish. He's Devo. Surely, come on, maybe.
Well, Taylor, what's his first name? That will help us decide.
I have no idea. I just always know him as Devo. Obviously, you do. But yeah, no, it was
Bebe and Devo. That's what we want up top for Ibiza.
How about Spiffy? Does he play up there? I mean, he plays for Ibiza. So yeah.
This is Ibiza. We get that. We should never assume. I've gone with a 50-50 and I've probably fallen flat on my face there. But to get 30 games in and still not know is probably another incremental up. But again, what was this right? It was a bit of a lead defender, wasn't it?
It was a foul. I think it's a soft one, but I think it's probably just about the right call. I do think he pushes in the back, and I think probably has to get given against him. And it's so hard to get the ball past Ramon Villa. They must have been gutted because essentially, they did, and it wasn't allowed. Then after half time, Eldense just turned it on, didn't they? 3 goals in 19 minutes. But even that, though, came after this brilliant save from Villa, from Devo, the aforementioned Devo, or is it Davo, that was heading for the bottom corner. Really good save from Villa. He's such a good keeper, Villa. I mean, we love Diego Forlì, of course, and we're big fans of Andres Prieto and Ponfe. But yeah, brilliant save from him. I mean, they just dominated after that, really, though. Eldense, Robbie Ibanez scored 2, including one when I think Ivan Del Olmo came at half time for Ibiza, and he just tried to dribble the ball his own box, which is not a great idea. And that meant Ibanez scored a second, and then Dione got a penalty, which he rolled in. And done by 65 minutes, more or less. And I can still see Eldense winning a Grupo Dos, to be honest. They're so strong at home, and they're pretty good away as well. Whereas Ibiza, 6 points off 5th place, and they're actually 4 points off the relegation zone. So, I don't see them making the top 5 the way things are going. They are consistently inconsistent, as we know, but at the moment they're losing more than they're winning.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mad one. And again, when you put it into the black and white of, firmly being mid-table there are Ibiza, but only being 5 points off the playoffs and 4 above relegation shows you how tight this Grupo is. And I agree with you. I think Eldense are just doing. They're doing. You know what? Controversially, they're doing the job that I thought Racing Ferrol would do. You know what I mean? Like say they recruited well. They kept a good core of players who came down from the Spanish Segunda with them, and yes, admittedly they have had a managerial change, but Baratan has just got them drilled now, hasn't he? And again, if he would have been the manager to start the season, we might have had a Tenerife kind of situation in our hands here in Grupo Dos. But ultimately, because they were so far back from the start of the season, they're playing catch up now. But they are a true threat to the likes of Europa, Atletico Madrileño, Sabadell. They're very much in with a shout of getting promoted automatically. And then if not, I wouldn't want to play Eldense at their stadium in the playoffs, Liam. That'd be a really hard ask for anybody to do, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they're a really good side, and yeah, I mean it's difficult because they've just come down. So I kind of like to see other teams have a crack at Segunda with my Segunda hat on. But yeah, right now they're in a great position. One team, of course, that has come down and is going straight back up again. Let's begin our Grupo Uno roundup at Tenerife now, 12 points clear. They beat Osasuna Promesas 1-0. Own goal. Osasuna Promesas missed a penalty. Very, very Tenerife-like, isn't it? They've done that so many times this season. I'm not trying to take credit away from them, obviously. Still got to win the games, but there's been quite a few of those, isn't there? And their lead was basically extended by 2 points because Celta Fortuna couldn't win away at Anantero. In fact, nearly lost it. They equalised in the 90th minute. I don't know what you thought there, Nick. I thought Anantero were really unlucky in this game. I thought there were 2 goals that were disallowed. They were both really tight offside decisions, and I felt pretty sorry for them.
Yeah, and again, we've spoken about this before, haven't we? Where we shouldn't be really leaving, offside decisions to be checked by FVS and stuff like that. But ultimately, they've upheld the linesman's decision on both times. And again, in these kind of games where little Galician derby as well, we know how good Celta Fortuna are. Arenteiro under the threat of relegation. These are the kind of opportunities and chances which they may come back to regret come the end of the season from both sides of the spectrum as well, because I'm sure Celta Fortuna, would really like to keep up momentum going into the playoffs, even though, knock on wood, we hope they don't. A 3-1 victory for Ponferradina against Unionistas. Liam moved them level on points with fifth place Pontevedra, who chalked up a third successive goalless draw, this time against Orense. And they've still not won at home since the opening weekend of 2026 when they beat Racing Ferrol. We had Pontevedra down as a bit of a unlikely challenger in the playoffs, didn't we, come the turn of the year? They're in real danger of dropping out here, aren't they?
Yeah, very much so. As we've said many times before, they're queuing up outside the top 5, and Pontevedra just about staying in there. And we've talked about the pitch before; it cannot be helping. But they've also had away games, so they haven't won either, and 3 goalless draws in a row. It doesn't take much to work out what their issues are. One thing that always concerns me, a number of teams this division, of course, the lack of an out-and-out number 9. Alex Compar did very well earlier on in the season for them, but not scoring at the moment. One guy who is scoring at the moment for Ponferradina, Eugene Frimpong, second goal in about 3 or 4 weeks, I think, and a spectacular one. But a little bit controversial this, because he's already on a yellow card, I think, and he then does a particularly ridiculous celebration whereby he goes and grabs a sort of folding chair from the crowd and puts it on the side of the pitch and sits down on it. And checking the law, but that should really be a second yellow card for unsportsmanlike behaviour, and he got away with it. And overall, it's a good win for Ponferradina. I'm not saying they didn't deserve it, but Unionistas will feel aggrieved about that. They'll also feel aggrieved about Alvaro Gomez, their penalty taker. He missed a penalty. Prieto saved it well, but the rebound comes straight back to him. He's got his head in his hands. If he'd just be watching the ball, I suspect he might have tucked the rebound away. But is he even allowed to do that? Yeah, he is, because it hit the keeper, didn't it? It's only if it hits the bar he can't. So yeah. And then Munir's red card. I mean, I know he's ex-Yacana Deportivo, so of course I'm always on his side, but it's not a red card for me. So yeah, overall, really good win for Ponferradina. They are looking great. But Unionistas, I think, have every right to feel a little bit hard done by in this game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like you say, I think sometimes it's just having that concentration, isn't it, Liam? And that deck chair story, I think that might go down as one of the Primera RFEF shithouse moments of the season, which would be quite good to do a roundup at the end of this season. But yeah, what a strange celebration. Another result which I knew you were very happy about, you text us in the WhatsApp group to applaud this result was the two sides both on 43 points. They drew with each other, though Zamora will definitely feel happier of the two sides fighting back from 2-0 down to draw with Real Madrid Castilla of all teams. We would love to have seen a win here, Liam, but coming from 2-0 down, it was almost a remontada. This is a good result for Zamora, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great result. Yeah, and Real Madrid Castilla will be disappointed, but overall, I suppose the Zamora, are not a bad side. They're both still outside the top five. Top five is unchanged. We've got Bilbao Athletic in third and Baracaldo in fourth, ahead of Pontevedra. Of course, top two we know are Tenerife and Celta Fortuna. Both Bilbao Athletic and Baracaldo drew. Bottom five is the same because 7 of the bottom 8 sides drew. So not a lot of change down the bottom. You did say 5 from 9. I think it is probably 5 from 9 going down. The only team to me that seem definitely down right now are Osasuna Promesas because they've got 9 points to make up. They've only got 9 games in which to do it. So I think they're out of it. Grupo Dos, top 5. We mentioned, obviously, about Sabadell, but Atletico Madrid kept the pressure on, didn't they?
They did, and an impressive win nonetheless. A 2-0 win against Cartagena to stay 3 points behind Sabadell at the top. Both goals scored after 90 minutes as well, in which, again, is often the sign of a side that can draw out a game, but I'm sure Fernando Torres would be happy with the result. Eldense's win against Ibiza means they leapfrog Europa into third place as well. Villarreal B stay fifth after a 1-0 win at Antequera 2. But what about that bottom 5 in Grupo Dos, because do we have a team back from the dead?
Well, we might do, mightn't we? Back-to-back wins for Marbella. Incredible, really. They won 3-0 against Sevilla Atletico, who I think probably are the only side right now who are definitely down from Grupo Dos. So they should win that game, of course. But, they did. They won it comprehensively and they played well. They're 6 points away from safety now. Betis Deportivo are also on a run as well to try and get out of trouble. Obviously, I'm not desperately impressed with how they're managing to do that because their winner in this game was scored by Pablo Garcia. Boo hiss, because ultimately... those of you who follow this story, Pablo Garcia, who's played 14 games for the first team and has also played in the Europa League for Real Betis, has now been dropped down into the B team to see if he can save them from relegation. Absolutely scandalous. But yeah, he did score the win in this game against Hércules, and they've both moved ahead of Atlético San Luqueño. So those 3 teams, it's still a long shot, but it's not impossible by any matter of means that they could get out of it with 9 games to go. I think, as I say, the only team that's definitely stuffed is Sevilla Atletico. Real Murcia won their relegation 6-pointer against Tarazona 1-0. That in itself is a bizarre statement to be making, but it was a relegation 6-pointer. And that result pushed Nastic into the bottom 5. Shall we move on to the games to watch in Grupo Uno this week, please, Nick?
Yes, I think it's your turn to do Grupo Uno, is it not, Liam?
I think it is actually, yeah. I'm going to start off with Zamora against Pontevedra, Saturday, 4:15 p.m. And the visitors, as we've just said, are just in the top 5. But if Oscar Cano's boys won this game, they would drop out of the top 5. They can't score at the moment. But the good news for them this week is they don't have to play on the ploughed field. That is Basaron. Zamora, decent form recently. They've won 2 and drawn 2. In the last 4, they had a run of just 1 win and 7 before that. So I think they'll be up for this one. I think they'll fancy a win in this one. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, no, I think this is the kind of time where, you've got to take your moments. And Zamora, who we've spoken about a lot this season, having, really big aspirations, having really good facilities and really want to be in the Spanish Segunda, don't they, Liam? I think they'll look at this game as a must-win, 3 points needed, and, could give them the momentum they need to really push and cement a place in the playoffs as well. So it'd be really, really interesting game, this one. How about your next pick?
Yeah, Talavera Tenerife, Saturday 9 p.m. seems like a strange one to pick because it looks like it ought to be an away win, pretty much straightforward one at that. Tenerife well clear at the top and Talavera in the relegation. So the reason why I've chosen this is because Talavera have been really tough recently to play against. And also when these teams met, not so long ago, match day 19 it was, I think early in the new year, Tenerife only won 1-0 and surprise, surprise, scored the goal in added time, as they like to do. So, I think this is a much closer game than you would think it would be on paper. I wouldn't write off Talavera in this one. You expect Tenerife to win it, but I think it'll be a decent game. On Sunday, Orense Ponferradina, Sunday at 12, that is, midday, high noon, etc. Home side, 24 points out of 33 at El Couto, so obviously a very strong on the home patch. not great away from home, as you can deduce from that. I think they've only got 33 points, haven't they? So yeah, that tells you everything about their feelings about their home turf. And they need to win this. They're only just above the bottom 5. And of course, Pompey are flying. They haven't lost on their travels since the first weekend of 2026. That's 4 wins and a draw. They haven't conceded a goal in any of those games, but they've only scored 4. So we quite often pick games, don't we, Nick, that we think are intriguing that unfortunately end up 0-0. This could end up 0-0, couldn't it? Let's be honest.
It could well easily. Definitely not a Glithian derby either. Just to make sure we reiterate that one as far as we're concerned. But yeah, I think, I'd like to maybe see if Ponferradina have got those aspirations of, surprisingly being involved in the playoff picture again this season, that they'd like to go away to Orense and pick up a good win here. But Orense will be looking over the shoulders now. I think they're only 1 point above Guadalajara, above the relegation zone. So they need this win, don't they, Liam, to get them away from danger and try and turn things around. Still sticking with, Danny Lether, which, we've spoken about how many managerial changes there have been. Still quite surprising to see him in charge of Orense, probably for a good reason as well. Let's not forget, he did have a really good purple patch midway through the season when they looked like they were dead and buried. So, yeah, all to play for in that game. Should we have a look at some Grupo dos fixtures that I'm going to recommend you this weekend, Liam?
Yes, indeed.
Let's do it. So I'm first going to recommend 2:00 on Saturday afternoon. It is Europa against Algeciras. It's not been the same kind of form at Can Drago for Europa as it was at New Sardinia. Just 1 win in 4. But Algeciras, as of late, haven't really been great on the road. I think they've only picked up fewer points away from home than Sevilla Atletico, which is a bit of a mad stat when you come to think of how well they've been playing in the Nueva Mirador. So whoever wins this one basically gets themselves really firmly into the playoffs if you're a Europa perspective. However, a win in this one for Algeciras would only put them within 3 points of striking distance from their opponents as well. So that'd be really, really interesting. Up next, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think both filiales have done worse, actually. But yeah, I mean, terrible. 10 points, I think, at home and 30-something points at home for Acatio. So don't travel well. But yeah, if they could win this one, and as you say, Europa not so great on their own patch, that would be a big win.
Yes, absolutely. The next game, obviously, we don't like picking games with filiales inside, but I feel like Atletico Madrid and Celta Fortuna are unique points this season, Liam, because they are involved in the playoff hunt, and they host Antequera this weekend, 2:15 on Sunday. The home side know that Sabadell are playing against Villarreal B later in the afternoon too, so they will need to get a win to make sure they close that gap towards the top. However, Antequera will also look to get back into the swing of things, still with an outside chance of securing a playoff place for Abraham Paz's side. So again, going to the capital and getting a result here might be the tonic they need. And then last but not least, we've spoken about them being back from the dead, Liam, but could they go away to Hercules, to the Estadio Jose Rico Perez, and get another win that potentially puts them within 2 points of survival? It is Hercules versus Marbella, 6:45 on Sunday. It could be a big one for escaping the drop if they get the points, don't they?
Yeah, they've got to go and sort of do something against a side that are not bad on their own patch. They've won 3 of the last 4 Hercules at the Jose Rico Perez. But yeah, you're absolutely right. This is the kind of game they need to win. They won a couple of games. They won surprisingly at Ibiza. They won fairly routinely, but they scored 6 goals in those 2 games and didn't concede any. That was the second result against the Atletico, as mentioned earlier. So yeah, this is the kind of game they have to win. They have to win this game if they want to have any chance of surviving. They can't just win the games. They can't just win the odd one, surprisingly, and then beat a team that are as good as down. They need to win this kind of game against a side who's not bad on their own turf. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, if they won this one, well, yeah, all bets are off, aren't they?
And we start to maybe look at the haunting of that managerial merry-go-round. And if Beto Company loses to Betis Deportivo and Marbella, back-to-back losses, you might need to start looking for another man going in at Hercules as well, potentially. And that's my rumour that I might start putting out there just for a bit of fun. But yeah, we'll be watching that one with interest. And for all the results and all the updates from the weekend, do go follow us on social media at El Poddo RFEF. You can catch all the highlights there and all the news and all the latest that we're putting out there as well, can't you, Liam? I'll say thank you for you to joining me this evening. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you very much.
And to you guys at home, gracias as always. We'll catch you next time. You've been listening to El Poddo. We'll catch you then. Hasta luego.